Yes, we're representing Life in Abundance Ecuador Trust. I'm from a general practice background, and I've got two special needs sons, and that has influenced a lot of what I've done in my life. And certainly in general practice, I developed a real heart for women in abuse. Sadly, I felt that it wasn't sensed or recognised to any great extent by my profession in this country, so that's been a real burden. I suppose that's why God led us into this work, which is not really how Life in Abundance started. It started really with a colleague of Avril's. I cannot let her tell you about that, and how Life in Abundance started.
Then Andrew's going to continue. I think you'll have seen right at the beginning of today, they had the words Paz y Esperanza up, and we're actually working with them in Ecuador, and we've received a report by them, which Andrew translated yesterday, which we will present next. Right, I worked with Jill, who's also a CMS missionary, and she was working in Ecuador. I worked with her in the 1980s. She became a Christian and felt the Lord call her out to Ecuador. Before I move on, we do have a lot of leaflets here. You're very welcome to take one. Unfortunately, they were printed before we started moving into women's work. So eventually we will be getting some new leaflets out. But anyway, these are here, and they do give our details on if you want to keep in touch with us. Now, Jill had 24 years working in special education, so when she went out to Ecuador, one of the first things she did, she saw there was very little help for special needs children and opened a school there. Then she started doing a lot of personal work on the local barrio. This is the local barrio, it's called Avril, and it is literally built on rubbish. A lot of the buildings are timber buildings, and they fall down. People have started building with trees blocks, which actually, yes, they do stay up better, but their foundations, on the next slide, could we have these, as you will see, are actually purely,
No.
oh, it has disappeared, it was there just now.
You had it just a second.
Yeah, we saw it. Well, we saw it with our own eyes. They were digging the foundations, literally pulling up rubbish bags. So 4 years ago it was a rubbish tip. Not a good place. Most people live in one room. Jill opened a preschool there, and there's been ladies who have been baptised through Bible studies. We felt that we should, as a Christian principle, tithe the income that we got. And we talked about it for 3 years. The first time we did that, we tithed our income, and 3 weeks later we got an email from somebody who we've still never met, saying if you would like to apply for a legacy to work with abused women in Ecuador, please write a business report and submit it to me. And Andrew said, well, about how much money is this for? And the sum that he gave was 100 times our tithe. Oh, it has to be God, doesn't it? Isn't it amazing? And we waited, didn't hear anything, and then suddenly, Jill was on furlough. Suddenly, 3 days before she returned, I opened this envelope and it had this huge check in, and you think, oh, wow. And then you think, now what? Because none of us had any experience at all. And we were just thinking, oh my goodness. Anyway, Andrew was able to find through, I think, a link through CSW, Christian Solidarity Worldwide, find out about Paz y Esperanza. They had started in Peru. They've just done 6 months in Ecuador. And when we went out there for 2 months in 2009, we linked up with them. And since then, they've been doing a lot of training up in Santo Domingo, five hours drive north of Guayaquil, where they're based. And so it goes on. We realise, actually, we're right in the middle of an area. Lara Flores is a place rife with all sorts of abusive situations. In fact, the whole of South America left it's a legacy really from the Spanish conquest, where they went in, raped the women, and abuse as just so endemic in the whole of society, especially in these poverty-ridden areas. Now, on this barrio, there's a tremendous amount of unemployment, and so, you know, after a while, the young men, they get together, they collect the girls, and they start prostituting them. They can get $200 a day. Most women can hardly get more than $5 a day to live on. So it's a huge amount of money. And when the community gets sick and tired of that, they go and tell the police. The police come in undercover, in plain clothes at night, and shoot all these boys. In fact, the local pastor has met a boy who has the gunshot wounds of surviving one of these incidents, and that's just to wipe out the gangs. And then there's, everyone's too scared to do anything, and then gradually the boys get together again, and it all starts again. So this is the place we're working. And I would like to give you now the story of one girl that we met when we were there, who, like, you've all had your hearts broken, and this girl broke my heart. When we were there, we met her and her mother. They lived in one room with 14 of them, one bed, and a television. Everyone's got TVs, but there's no sanitation, no running water. On this barrio in a house very similar, just up the road from these here. And how they produce children who are clean. Everybody's always clean and tidy. How they manage it, we really don't know. But when we met Carolyn, she was about 14 years old, and she was pregnant, father unknown. And we were there, we saw her just a few hours after she'd had her baby. And my heart went out to her. I couldn't really speak the language, but she had the biggest, saddest, big brown eyes that I've ever seen for anybody. And, you think, God, what can I do? And she really did play on my mind, and this is what I wrote. Big brown eyes and a big brown belly. Another baby to add to the family. Carolyn, Carolyn. What should we do for Carolyn, the saddest child I've ever seen, aged 14 and living in sin? What should we do for Carolyn, illiterate, misused, ill-kempt and abused, with a father who drinks and a mother who's used, in a rubbish-tip house that's made of wood, with her brothers and sisters, and how she's tried to be good and worked and helped and laboured so, but life's cycle of birth and death has no halt as she's caught in its encircling mesh of poverty. And no relief from the constant grind with dust and dirt that she mustn't mind, with anguish and heartache everywhere, and education and medical care so rare. And so she recycles cardboard for ages and ages so she can take home the most minutest of wages. This is Carolyn, the saddest child that I've ever seen. Her life appears over before it's begun, with a rotting stench in that rotting slum. Carolyn, Carolyn, what should we do for Carolyn? She wakes me in the night with the pain in her eyes, torments my conscience with the darkness and lies. So help me, please, tell me what to do so I can have peace in the night, maybe even sleep through. For not even a baby can bring a smile to her lips as she lies there alone in that hospital bed, no nursery, no nappies, no future ahead. So here is Carolyn. Big brown eyes and a big brown belly, aged just 14 with a baby to wean, and you see her struggle as her childhood dreams are smashed into the reality of motherhood, scavenging for her new family. Then we came home, and the Lord gave me a verse from Psalm 113. It says, I raise the poor from the dust, and lift the needy from the rubbish heap, in order to give them a place among princes and among the princes of their people. And I said, yes, Lord, let this be Carolyn. Then 2 months later, we heard the baby had died. And she'd taken the baby, which she called Jessica, down 6 hours drive in a bus down to Machala to see her older sister, Jessica, who was living with her drug-addicted boyfriend who was putting him out on the streets. And this drug addict boyfriend apparently somehow had killed this baby. And Jill, our missionary friend, and Caroline's mother went down to collect the baby, took it back for burial. And the boyfriend said, if you ever dare tell anybody and you dare to go to the police, I shall come and kill you. So they went home and lived in terror for months. This year, Caroline is living with another man who is putting her out on the streets. Now she's become pregnant again, and the boyfriend has left her, because this is common practice. The boyfriend leaves because he can't put the girl out on the streets because she's pregnant. When she's had the baby, she'll either be picked up by another man or the same one will come back, and so it goes on. Now this mother, you know Carmen, the mother, she has about 14 children. She, at last, after very much prayer and ministry, has said to her own husband, who drinks all the money away, so they've only got one room in their house, no kitchen, no bathroom or anything like that. She said to him, if you don't stop drinking, I'm going to leave you. And he was so shocked that someone dared to say something like that. He said he would stop drinking, but we don't know how long for. But she has watched two of her girls, her two oldest girls, go into prostitution, and you see this cycle, it just goes round and round, and you think, gosh, if I was a mother and I saw two of my girls go into this sort of life, you know, what hope is there? There can only be God. And we really do pray that God will intervene, and with the work that we're doing and joining up with Restore and Paz y Esperanza, we trust that eventually this cycle of poverty can be broken. We're networking to the church, specifically for the use of destitute women, and the church wasn't quite sure what to do about it, so they were growing sugarcane, so we bought it off them, and we hope there's a missionary church in America is going to come and do some building, to build some workshops and a safe haven there. Jill has been working all the time with the First Baptist Church out in Santo Domingo. It's very unusual. The pastor there, a lovely man of God, has a real call to work in social justice areas. The Evangelical Church of Ecuador is very strong. Many people are joining the Evangelical Church and becoming Christians. But the social aspect is very limited. But the government has now brought in sort of new laws that churches need to get involved in social action. And Jill has a privilege this coming month to do a presentation at the National Baptist Convention in Ecuador on the work that they are doing, she's doing with the Baptist Church. So hopefully this will give other people ideas in different parts of Ecuador. The Pastor William, he has a real vision for the New Dawn project, where we can empower women to become more self-sufficient. See, they have to stay with their husbands because they have no money of their own, they've got lots of children, they can't get to work, and then if they do, they can't have enough to be independent. So he wants to train them up in areas of developing small farming projects with hens and selling the eggs, to developing artisanal chocolate in the area of plants, a fabulous flora in Ecuador, making school uniforms and making cards and crafts, to give them some independence so that they could be able to empower them to make their own decisions and to be able to leave abusive situations. Also, Natalie, hopefully, will be coming over. There's another pastor. It's amazing, really. There's a Pentecostal pastor and a Baptist pastor working very closely in the charity, and they're working together to promote the work of Restore, and hopefully Natalie will be able to come over at some point in the future. We've been able to get a minibus to escort women so they are moving in safety, and we're also having ongoing links with Paz y Esperanza. So that's where we are at the moment. Tremendous lot of work because, as I say, abuse is really endemic in society. And the story of Carolyn can probably be reproduced thousands and thousands of times throughout South America. And perhaps that's the saddest thing of all. But isn't it good that the Lord can change people and situations? Thank you.